All right, we're live, everybody. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give everyone just a couple minutes to join. So sit back and relax. We will be starting in probably like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're recording this, Dan, right? Yeah.
Probably you'll need to rewatch this 10 times. That's how dense it will be. Get your coffee ready.
We're going hard today. We're going hard, but we will break all of this down over the coming weeks and months on Every and on X and on YouTube. So um, stay tuned for that. And please introduce yourselves. Like if you're in the chat, just say who you are and where you're from.
Yes, there's music playing.
I've got to say, it's so cool to see the crowd here. I love how many people there are, how excited you all are. I'm psyched for this.
Netherlands.
Kind of feels like the AI Olympics right now.
All right, everyone. We only have an hour, so I want to just get started. Yeah, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So, let's see, share. Let me know. Can you see my screen? Thumbs up. Good. Okay, great. So, welcome to Claude Code Camp. I am psyched for this. I hope everyone is having a great day and as excited as I am. I'm just going to jump in. The reason that we're doing this is that Claude Code has legitimately changed everything about the way that Every works. Um, like I've just watched it radically alter the processes, the primitives, the mental models, everything about the way that we do developer work, and also the way that we just do work in general. I use it all the time for lots and lots of writing tasks and research tasks. And I think it's not yet very well understood. I think we're all kind of discovering how to use it together. And what I wanted to do is create an hour where we just share our initial learnings with you, and you can share it with us too, because I think we're just exploring this whole world together. And I think a really good example of how radically different Claude Code is from anything else that's come before is I shipped two features or two different pieces of code for two different Every products this week, having zero pre-existing familiarity with the code base. Like that should not be possible. Um, I could have done this maybe, 2 years ago, I could have done it, but I would have had to spend like 2 or 3 weeks getting up to speed on each code base. And I think that that's what's possible with Claude Code is it allows for such radical developer productivity that um, people who are not necessarily involved in your products can jump in and just like add something that works, that is a feature that you've been wanting to add for a long time. It is a little bit TBD how good the code is. Kieran will give you a little bit of an overview on that, but I will say the thing that I built for Cora, which is Kieran's product, is going to ship hopefully in the next like couple days. So it was close enough. Like I said already, It's also useful for writing, for research. I use it for leadership feedback as well. Um, I wish we had more time because I have like a zillion different projects I've done with Cloud Code that are not developer focused, but because of the crowd, because of the people that we have internally, I think the most important or most interesting thing that I can share is code related. So we're gonna start with that, and then we'll probably do another one of these. We'll probably do a lot more of these over time to share all the other use cases that we have. Um, let's keep going. Um, so. So basically the agenda for today is we're going to share the end-to-end workflows that we use to ship with Claude Code from planning to production. We're going to talk to you about our Claude MD files. We'll talk to you about the slash commands that we use. This says that we'll share both developer and non-developer use cases, but late breaking change, we're just going to share developer use cases. And like I said, we're all going to explore this together. All of us are figuring this out right now. This entire event we threw together in the last couple of days. So um, the point is for us to just like share honestly with you what's going on for us or what we're thinking about, and we would love for you to share that back. Um, just a reminder a little bit about what we do at Every. So we publish ideas and apps at the frontier of AI. And the way that we do that, we have a very specific method for how we do that. The first is we live in the future. We use all these tools all the time, every day, for every part of our work, and everybody at the company does the same thing. We write what we discover. So everything that gets published on Every is from um, the uh, the daily work and life that we're living to use these tools. We teach what works. So we have a consulting arm where we work with big companies to help them implement AI. And we build what's missing. So we have a bundle of AI products that we build that we'll talk about in a second that comes out of what we find when we write and where we live. And that's sort of a loop. So as we build, that informs what we write and what we teach. So again, we have a daily newsletter. We do day zero model reviews and long form essays on building and living at the edge of AI. We incubate a bunch of software products, which we'll talk about in a second. Um, and we do consulting and training to help companies become AI first. And we bundle all this together. So as every paid subscribers, you pay one price and you get access to everything that we make. I say this because a lot of people don't know all the stuff that we do. And even though you're paid subscribers, just want to introduce you to the universe of stuff that we have available for you. So now I'm going to introduce the people who are going to be speaking. These are all people that are internal at Every. I'm Dan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Every. And let's just go around the horn and have people introduce themselves. Kieran, do you want to go first?
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, I'm Kieran. I'm the GM of Cora. Cora is a chief of staff for your email, and I'm building it using Claude Code. Without it, it wouldn't exist. And everything I talk about today will come from just building that app.
Danny.
Hey, I'm Danny. I'm the GM of Spiral. It's an agentic short form copywriter, heavily inspired by Claude Code and also heavily built with Claude Code.
Naveen.
Hey everyone, I'm Naveen. So I'm working on Monologue. It's a new product from Every, and I'm going to talk more about it. It's a smart dictation app. Yeah, right now it's in private beta, and we've been dogfooding it internally for past 2.5 months.
Great. Alex.
Hey, I'm Alex Duffy. I lead our AI training and working on a consulting arm. Happy to be here. I shipped AI diplomacy recently, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Sweet. And Yash.
Oh, I'm Yash. I work in Sparkle. Sparkle is a Mac app that helps you keep your desktop and all your files and folders on your Mac organized. And I've been shipping using Cloud Code exclusively for the past couple of months. So I'm super psyched for this event.
Sweet. All right. So let's dive in. I think everyone here probably knows what Cloud Code is, but just in case, just so we're all on the same page, it's an instance of Claude that runs in your terminal. When I first used it, or when I first realized it was really incredible, is when Claude Opus 4 came out. It just changed um, what models are capable of. Like it just does these long horizon tasks and it does them well. And I think the most powerful thing about it is that it's customizable and composable. So it lives on your machine and you can make it do things that Anthropic never thought you could do because they built a system that allows it to get more and more complex and more powerful over time. It's really, really cool. Um, and we've used it to create a new way of engineering or a new way to think about how to do engineering that we've been calling compounding engineering, which Kieran coined. And in typical engineering environment, each unit of work you do often makes the next unit of work harder because the code base gets more and more complex. And I think the way to think about compounding engineering, which is uniquely enabled by AI agents and Claude Code, is that each unit of engineering work should make the subsequent units of work easier. So your job gets easier and easier over time. And we'll talk about how that works. Um, and compounding engineering has a loop to it. There's a way that it works. So you start with planning. A lot of the work of working with AI agents and Claude Code is just making a great plan. If your plan is amazing, the feature is just going to kind of get built by itself for you. So we spend a lot of time on the planning step. We have a lot of prompts to make planning great. The next step is delegate. So that's actually just having Claude do the work, and that's the easiest part. You just say go, and it just does it if you have a good plan. The next step is assess, and that's what are the tools and techniques to figure out, okay, Claude did work. Is it any good? Is it going to work in the way that I expect? How to update the code base, all that kind of stuff. And the last part of the loop is codify, which is record the learnings for next time to make every other step of the process easier next time. So um, as Claude makes mistakes or as you learn things about the way the code should be written, you're making sure to codify them and distribute them to future instances of Claude Code and other people on the team so that you can go faster and faster. And that's sort of the structure or the loop. And what I want to do is we're going to go through each of these steps individually, but what I want to do first is I want to have Kieran come up and just demo you what that loop looks like end to end for him. He'll spend 5 minutes and just give you a sense of what's possible. And then what we're going to go do is dig into each of these steps and have people demo specific things that they do in each step. So Kieran, take it away.
Cool. Uh, I love multiple tabs because we can have multiple tabs. So this is normally how my terminal looks like when I actually work. And I'll show the three steps here. And the beauty is you can work on these three steps at the same time for different things. So the first one, I'll start Claude Code. CC is a alias for me that starts Claude Code by passing permissions, which is very handy because it means it won't bother me asking every time, can I do this? Can I read this? It will just work. So if you trust it and you think it's safe on your computer, I would definitely say that for lowering friction. So I have a command, and commands are these files. It's basically just living in .claude and then commands either in your home directory or your project. And it's just a markdown file. And I've been making these. We will share these, so don't worry. But really, the first step is to do the planning. And planning happens by this long prompt where it gathers context. So it's context gathering, context engineering, finding best practices, and all of that, thinking, like making a plan. And this will output a GitHub issue that will be able to be picked up. So let's kick off one. So Lenny was very kind to say that he liked Cora. Thank you. But we need to add him to the social proof. So let's go here. So I have CC running. So it's issue. So I do slash issues, and I say this is a tweet of Lenny. I want you to add Lenny to the social proofs we have everywhere in emails, on the sign up pages. Can you just figure out everything and go from there? So basically, I speech to text here with a monologue, which is really cool. Like monologue reads everything that was before and has context, so it like actually formats it like code, which is very good for Claude Code. So like cannot recommend it enough for that. But it's going to do its thing. The output here will be a GitHub issue, and this is a GitHub issue. I like to use GitHub because that's what I'm used to as a developer. And you can see this one is already generated from before. And this is 309. And the next one is like, okay, this is going. Let's do the second one. We're going to work. Different command. I say work on 309. That's it. Working done. Next. Pull request will be generated. And yesterday I did work for 45 minutes. That's my personal record. It can be done. I know they announced that it's good at working long. If it's short, it just means your command is not great. 45 minutes personal record. Okay, so pull request is then what the output is here. Let's look at this pull request that then created. So normally pull requests need review. And that's the last step. So this is going, that is going. Let's do the third. Let's review a pull request that came out of this step in the middle, um, which we can do by I have a few. Like I have different levels. There's like normal. The normal one is the review, which is default in Claude Code. But I also have another one where it's best practices. So this is a little bit more tailored towards um, what we do, what we like, what our style is, what our taste is. And we'll get into that later on because manual reviews can also help to then extract and distill your taste into this command. So more things will be automated. But this is my favorite view. It's like honking, germinating, pursuing, whatever they come up with, just running and then go to another one and do more. That's basically how my day looks.
That's great. So I want to pause there because that was a lot. Does anyone have questions? I know people are asking about warp. Why do you use warp, Kieran?
Uh, I like Warp. I use it for years. And I think they have interesting ideas with AI as well. I think it's the most AI forward terminal, and I love to experiment with everything. So, like, it is cool to have a terminal in which you run Claude code that in itself can also spin up Claude code commands. Like, I'm not going into that, but you can use Warp to spin up Claudes and swarms and things like that. It can get wild, but I love it.
Great.
Yes, I'm using also work trees. Yeah, I have way more content about that. You can do these, and I'll do 5 features at the same time with work trees as well. Currently, it's just implementing one, but you can use work trees to do that. Yeah.
Great. I'm gonna allow Zach raise their hands. Zach, welcome.
Hey, my question was work trees. It seemed like you are using work trees in your workflow, but in that example demo, you were not. You were just doing the same branch. But I would love just it seems like a few other people as well, plus one to showing the work tree setup. We are trying to figure out what works for us best here. And I think that, yeah, that's what I'd love to see. It seems like there are a bunch of different people trying different things, and the work tree setup is a little bit of a blocker for us. So we'd love to hear how you guys do that more.
Go for it, Kieran.
Yeah, so I'll show you. Like I have a small wrapper. Here, I'll show you my bash scripts here. Move this. Yeah, so work trees basically what it unlocks is if you want to have different features worked on at the same time, the issue is like uh you cannot because it's the same file system and it shares the same file. So if you have multiple agents try to edit the same files, that's going wrong. So Git has work trees, and what that does is like it creates a new branch, but it also copies it to a different location on your file system. So I have this command ccw, which is the work command that I just showed you. This is honestly what I will use. Like what I just showed you is just a simplified version, but like it is working like that. So I would urge everyone to create a system that works for them. What works for me is I just do ccw with the issue number. What it will do is it will create a work tree with my wt command, which is very simple. It just creates a work trees directory where I am, checks it out, makes it work, and then it starts Claude Code with this work command with the issue. So for me, the friction is very low. I just do CCW with an issue from GitHub, and that's it. Like I don't need to go do anything else. It just runs and the pull request comes out. So that is really nice. And I can even say warp. Can you look at like all the to-dos in the to-do lane and just run this command for all of them? So figure out what works for you. Like don't overthink it, or like there are many libraries that do these things, but like experiment yourself. It's very easy to write bash scripts or command line scripts for yourself how you want it with Claude. Just try and experiment what works in your workflow.
Great. Um, Another question is Raymond asks, Kieran, do you use any priming commands to start? So a lot of people prime with making Claude print the tree or the directory file list.
No, but I do like ground it with the right context in the context window with the commands. So I don't like to do juggling like that. I just want it to work. I want to see it fail, and then I rather have it figure out with an agentic way. Like that's more of the new way. Like can the agent figure it out themselves, and how do you set the agent up for success instead of like the more old school repo prompt, mega prompt. Like I would argue everyone that is still thinking in like the context, like mega prompt, lean into the agent and give the agent nudges to go and tools. So, for example, say, hey, you have this AST grep available, or you have this command line tool available. Use it. Then, for example, open the source code of a node package if you want to see how things work instead of guessing. Like that's better because then they can do a lot of things. Yeah, they can do a lot of things without you even knowing it could do it.
Cool. And I just want to assure everyone, we will create a GitHub repo with all of the stuff we're sharing that you all will be able to use this stuff later. So keep an eye out for that. We'll send an email to everyone who's on the attendee list, so that you'll be able to use this stuff. I want to keep going. If you have questions as we're going, feel free to raise your hand or put a question in the Q&A box. If you put it in the webinar chat, it's going to get lost because there's so many people. So just feel free to raise your hand or put it in the Q&A box. Okay. So we had Kieran demo you that life cycle that we've been talking about, which is plan, delegate, assess, and codify. And now I want to go into each of those if we can, and just go a little deeper and have a couple more demos. So Alex, would you mind reintroducing yourself
Yeah.
and you're gonna talk to us a little bit about some of the things you do in the plan step.
Yeah. Hey guys, Alex Duffy, mainly focused on AI training and consulting, um, and kind of teaching people some of the things that we'll be talking about today. And I also am very into education and games and AI, and so launched AI Diplomacy, which is kind of the intersection of all of those things. And I'll use that as an example to show you guys some of my favorite things when using Claude Code. Two big ones. And here, let me just share my screen. So I've got two big ones that I really like, these two prompts. So one's kind of this context file, which is what I do to kind of start and set up, and I'll drop that in chat. And then one's this experiment log. And so if you look at the prompt in the context file, what it's asking you to do is to kind of give context of files in a folder. And the reason why I do that is especially when you're starting to work with like bigger code bases, it really starts to balloon the in context. And as most of us are probably aware, as you increase context, you decrease accuracy of these language models. They are predicting 1 minute at a time, and as you flood that context window, they just get worse. And so if you in order to build for that, you can actually have it create smaller files that hold context of many files, so it doesn't need to go open a whole bunch. And so what I use this LLMs.txt for is to kind of in most of the folders in my repo have these files that explain what everything in it does. And it kind of goes through and looks at each one of the modules and summarizes them, has the different components of them and how you interact with them and key functions, as well as like parameters within it. But then I also kind of have it make visuals. In my prompt, have it make an ASCII visual because I like to look at them. If you're building it exclusively for language models, you can probably have it make a mermaid diagram, which uses less characters and is easier for an LLM to read. That's totally fine. But I use this all the time. And so that's kind of like prep, that's kind of setup. And then when I need to actually go implement something new, then I almost always use an experiment log. And this experiment log prompt, I'll drop in here as well. Um, it tells the model to make a temporary markdown file in my experiments folder. And so I've got an experiments folder with a ton of things that I've implemented. It really focuses on the goal, right? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? And everything that you've looked at from existing code. So it has to go through, look at existing code, pull some of the citations, often from those LLMs.txt files, and then makes a plan. Then when it goes through and actually executes it, if it hits it in one shot, I'll give it a tip. And if it fails, then it's going to be fined. And then it's going to explain what it learns and give a new surgical plan of attack. And the reason why I do something like this is because these files end up looking like something like this, where in this case, I was trying to modify the prompts that I use to have the models play a little bit more aggressively in AI diplomacy. And so that means looking at, a dozen prompt files and where they're being used and all this different information that really floods the context window. And while I was doing that, I ran out of context in Claude Code like 3 or 4 times. So having this experiment log file where it can go add things back to as it's going, and learn from that enables it to keep that context across chats, and stay focused, knows where it messes up, and is able to build on that in a more concise way. So it pulled out its goals, talked about the findings in different examples, and created a plan of attack based on those goals. And we actually went through and made a whole bunch of different changes. It keeps track of every command that it runs so that it knows what it's doing, and ended up getting pretty good results for a single model. Here we go. We saw like a huge negative impact on hold orders, which was great. That's what we're looking for. But it didn't replicate to another model, so that was confusing. And then we were able to build on it and actually make even more changes. Ended up making a whole bunch of variations, and ending up with something like this. It made the analysis script afterwards to help me look at it and visualize it, which was great because it had all the context and knew where it was coming from and was able to do that quick. And this is just kind of interesting because you can see that each model reacts differently to those changes. It generally has the same, but the new Kimi model, it seems like it's not as great as instruction following. It's great overall, but sometimes it doesn't listen just as well. But anyway, that's what I got. Do we have any questions that popped up?
We had a couple questions that did pop up. One person asked, do you use personas? I know you'll like this question.
Hmm.
Do you use personas? And if so, when and how? Before you answer, I just want to remind everyone, if you're enjoying yourself, please post this on X and LinkedIn and mention every, and we will retweet you. It would mean a lot to us if you shared what you're learning, and feel free to take screenshots and all that kind of stuff. Alex, do you use personas?
Yeah, I do. So I do. Usually when I'm making bigger prompts, and I have this prompt sandwich that I love that I've talked a lot about, and I have a persona in here as well. And one thing, and this, what I'm showing you guys right now is just kind of like my prompts notepad. So I've got just a bunch of stuff in here. So I use that one, and then I also have it make its own persona often. So like before you answer, start by reflecting and create your own persona that is going to help us accomplish this goal. So I love personas and I definitely use it. And I think especially with models that are better at following instructions, or are very steerable. And that's where personas come into play a lot, because it really does change a lot of the answers. When writing code, I haven't used them as much, honestly, because I think the persona is a little bit more explicit in the code that's written already because I'm using bigger code bases. When I'm starting a new project, that's when I'll use a persona. But then it starts to be a little bit more based on the existing code base and the best practices that are within.
Great. Um, let's see. I don't think there are any other questions for now. Um, Okay, let's move on to the next stage. So the next stage in the process is delegate, which is actually, funnily enough, the easiest one. If you've done your plan right, you should just be able to ask Claude Code to do work. So there's not that much to demo. Kieran does have a specific /work command that he uses that we can maybe we'll share a little later, but I don't think that that's the most interesting place to spend time. What I do want Kieran to show is the assess step, because I think this is one of the things that people have the most questions about. It's like, well, if I have AI do the work for me, how do I know it's going to actually be any good? And Kieran has a couple things to show about how he assesses the work that Claude Code has done once we've done the plan step and once we've done the work to see if it's actually any good. Kieran?
Yes. So this is what most people run into most now is like you have lots of pull requests, lots of code. It's very easy to generate code. And what I do is I use pull requests in GitHub because I'm used to it, and why not? Like everyone knows it. So I have different AI bots. For example,
And
Charlie.
I
I
want to
have
pause. This is a pull request from like a suspicious source.
yeah.
From
This is
Claude
Dan.
Code, but it's a
Dan
pull
hasn't
request
typed
from
any
me.
Ruby in like 25 years, so he's using very, very interesting synth now. He's a great engineer, but this is your first like larger feature. I think you committed something, but it was a copy change. But what I do is I lean into uh, other agents other than Close Code. So I have Charlie, for example, is a TypeScript focused reviewer. So it's kind of fun because it's very strict about types, which is very different than Ruby, but it creates a nice tension and a different perspective that I think is really cool. You could do this with Claude as well, where you say, hey, you are now like a Rust engineer. Review this pull request with that add-on. Like it can generate cool things. So normally I go through these and say like, hey, are these actually legit or not? And I can like say, yeah, this is good. I do a manual review as well, and this is just me doing a code review, and I use Monologue for this, which is really nice because it reads everything and yeah. Uh, Here, let me do a command because this is just really cool. And with Monologue, what I also have it do is it rewrite to a specific conventional comments format, so it is like restructured a certain way. Can you remove the logger info here? We really do not need it. This is stupid. So, like, if you would say something very offensive to humans, okay, can you remove the logger info here? It should be nice here, but it is saying, hey, this is an issue. Can you remove this? So, like, it rewrites it a little bit, like it stays true to that. I was passionate about this, but you can see it like reads this and it can also reference these. So if I say referral suggestion, but really what I do is I just collect all the feedback in here, different bots. I run review commands like you saw before. So this review command, these are manual, but like these are generated by Claude, so you can see it's doing things as well. Um, and I think that's important. And this is important information as well to then distill. I'll show you that later, but yeah, assessing very important and planning very important.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll point out that I didn't quite realize before I started digging into this more is you can do the assessment like in the plan step and in the assessment phase, and the more cycles you have Claude run, the the more likely it is you're going to find lots of different issues and fix them before they hit production. And one thing that Kieran did that was really interesting is he had Claude Code research itself and try to understand like what is it good at and how to push it in ways that make it more likely to give you good results. And even saying things like consider alternative hypotheses or um, make sure you've thought this through end to end. Like all those things that are just best practices for thinking, if you include them in your assess step, you're going to be much more likely to find stuff before it goes live. Um, okay, let's keep going. The next step in the process, is my favorite step and is the thing that makes it compound, is once you've done your planning, you've done your work, you've done your assessment, now it's time to take the things that you've learned together with Claude and push them into your Claude MD file and into your slash commands so that next time it's much faster to do work. The next unit of work is easier. And Kieran is going to show us in particular one way that he does that.
Yeah, so the whole point is like, yes, you reviewed, you spent time, but you don't want to repeat yourself. So like how do you lean into the compounding aspect? And I think this is really cool. This is the pull request we just looked at, and you can run this PR comments, and it just pulls in all the comments from GitHub. And what I like to do is like you can choose where you want to put this, but you can put it in a Claude MD, or you can do it in like a custom command. But like I think comments like these are a style that should be followed and maybe prevented in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to extract or have Claude analyze these and extract and distill the style and the way to review it into the Claude MD. So next time, hopefully, we won't have this anymore. And yeah, you can keep doing this and you can even make this a command as well, but I'll show you just talking to it. Okay, can you look at all the comments from Kieran Klaassen here? And can you do this in parallel? Spin up sub agents and see every single comment if we can learn something from the style. And can you look at Claude MD and update the Claude MD with best practices so we do not make these mistakes in the future and it's clear for you to follow these. So this is kind of the way to like the general way to do it. You can make a custom command, you can automate it as well. And um, after actually think ultra hard. I like to just say think ultra hard here because it has everything in context. You can trigger thinking already because it has the tokens already there. Don't say think ultra hard without actually having the things in context because it will just take a long time. We'll see if this will go in parallel or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, what it's doing now is extracting that, adding to Claude. I review that, and hopefully next time I don't have to comment these anymore because they won't be there, and we move on to something else.
I want to point out a couple things here. One is Kieran's hands never touch a keyboard. He's just constantly dictating to monologue. And I think that's really cool. And it's a practice that a lot of us have adopted. It's a little harder when you're working in person, but if you're working remotely, it's the best. Another thing is these subagents. So you can see they're working in parallel to gather the information that he wanted from the PR. And subagents are crazy and they're really interesting. And I think they're an under-discussed feature of Claude Code because it doesn't kick off subagents automatically. You have to ask for them. And a lot of people are like, well, how do I use them? And the answer is just ask it to make parallel subagents and it will just do that. And there's lots of different like patterns that you can use with subagents that are cool. One really important thing is if you're processing a lot of text, you can add up to 10 subagents. Adding 10 subagents at a time will allow you to process text with an LLM instead of like using grep or using any kind of like regex. So it's a really efficient way to process a lot of text through an LLM because they're each processing their own part of the text. Another really cool pattern for subagents is opponent processors. So you have subagents with different perspectives that are sort of competing with each other to give an opinion. And that's really helpful. So for example, I was using Claude Code to process my expenses because I travel a lot, so I need to submit expenses to and I had two agents that were looking at my expense report from my perspective to see if I was expensing all of the right stuff and two agents, or I was expensing enough, and two agents that were looking at the expense report from an auditor's perspective and trying to find me over expensing things and then I had Claude synthesize the two perspectives, and stuff like that is really, really helpful. Kieran, how are we doing on this? Do you think we should keep let it keep running, or do you think we should move on?
We should move on. But like the point is, you never should look at this and like wait. That's not the point. The point is to let it do its thing, move on to the next one, and you come back to it. That's really the mind shift.
Right.
Sometimes if you want to chill, it's nice, but like your command should run like 10 minutes. That's great. But yeah, you see it's almost done. It's updating the Markdown now with the best practices actually. So we could look at it quickly. So it's now thinking how to do that. But yeah, I'll share my screen and we can move on as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, so those are the four steps. I want to share a couple other things. Naveen, you're going to do a walkthrough for us of how you built a migration or a feature that would have taken you like many weeks in just a few hours with Claude Code. So introduce yourself again, introduce the app that you work on, and then tell us what you did.
Yeah. Hey, Ron, I'm Naveen. So I'm GM at GM of Monologue. So this is a private beta product. We haven't released it publicly. So you have like already Kieran using it in the demo. So I'm not going to talk more about how Monologue works and stuff. So I'm going to just talk more about how I used Cloud Code to develop a like really complicated feature like that is. So currently our business model for Monologue is for every bundle users, Monologue is free. You can access it with your pro subscription. But if you are like just a normal user who signed up, you have to pay $10 per month. But you will also get a 7 days free trial. So that's our business model. But after running it for a couple of weeks, we understood, okay, that business model doesn't really work. We really need to change it to 2000, 2000 words per, as a freemium way. So this is like a really big feature because I have my main backend, which is Python based fast API. I have my Mac app, which is Swift, and I have my Cloudflare worker because I want the transcriptions to be really fast. So it's like workers is the best way to scale that up. So this is like I have my main DB and KV as well. So this is like a pretty big architectural change, right? So what I did is I'm not going to go deep because Kiran already and rest of the team also went through it. So I'm going to just show you how I implemented this. So I just did a brain dump. And for me, I think personally, I feel using voice to write prompts is the best way for you to give the context. When you are writing, you kind of become lazy and you miss out like a couple of things. So I would personally recommend uses any kind of dictation app to prompt. I think that's the one big change you can see in the results you get from LLMs. And I just did my brain dump of all the things I mentioned, like about 2000 words premium thing. And then it just started analyzing. And then I asked it to create this 2000 free words plan.md. Here you can see it also have this high level view that I showed, client, worker backend, main backend, and everything. But I'm not really happy with this plan. So what I did is I created another Claude code again, but this time I tagged the initially created plan, and then I started giving it feedback. I don't like this, I don't like that. So it started updating this plan. I think this is where you have to sit down and just read the plan, understand it, go through the pros and cons, and then just keep on refining the plan. So that's where you can again reuse the Claude code to refine it. And I started refining it. Once that is done, so this is where the third one comes in. So now again, I tagged it, and then let's focus on implementing just the part that I want to implement because this is like a phase one, phase two, phase three kind of a thing. And I just did that. So this is how I'm able to multi-code base thing. So here you can see my code base. Here I have this Mac app. I have my main backend and like all these things. And I have my main Claude.md file, which, I just use slash init within the parent folder, root folder. And it just talked about all the things that I have in this folder. And this is a really cool way. Usually, like let's say to change a big business model, like the way it touches most of the code base, like you had to change the plan of premium, like from paid plan to freemium. It touches most of the code base, and it takes like usually 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But with Cloud Code, I just did this in one morning sitting. So yeah, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We have looks like one person has their hand raised. I'm going to ask you to come up and ask your question. And please introduce yourself. Atharv. All right. Hello? We can't hear you if you're talking. All right, we will hear from you later. Feel free to put your question in the Q&A box. Let's keep going. So now we have Danny, the GM of Spiral. Danny, please reintroduce yourself and tell us what you want to demo.
Hey everyone, I'm Danny. I'm the GM of Spiral. And I want to show off a few other tools that make Claude Code even better. So the first thing I want to show off is how to use Claude Code outside of being on your laptop. I actually want to get off my laptop and go enjoy Chicago. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to use a tool called Vibe Tunnel, made by a friend of ours. So once you install it, it's totally free. The link will be shared. You set it up, and then when you're in your terminal, you just type in VT and shell. It sets some stuff up, and then I can open up Claude, and now it's ready. If I go over to Vibe Tunnel, it gives me a link. And if I open up that link, I can actually access my terminal from inside my browser. And you can see that this link is actually accessible via the internet. So I can go on my phone, I can go leave, and I can talk to Claude all day long without having to be on my laptop. And I can open multiple sessions, so I can do a lot of the same workflows that Kieran's shown, just getting a lot of stuff done without having to be on my laptop. So that's the first one. The second one that I want to show off, if you've used Claude Code a lot, you know that it summarizes its chats after you start to run out of context. I find that the summarizations aren't actually that good. And that you end up having to retell it a bunch of things, or it's going to have to go look up a bunch of files again. And so I wanted to solve this. What I realized that I really wanted was to actually just get rid of earlier messages and keep the last 10 or 15. So I built a little tool, again, totally free for you to use, and that allows you to do that. So here's a chat that I have. I want to actually get rid of all of the old messages that I had. So I can do / status, and I can get the session ID. And then if I just leave the session for a second, I can do npx called prune with the session ID, and I can do -k and tell it how many messages I want to keep. So maybe I want to keep only 10. It will back up the original so you don't lose it. You'll see that it actually found a bunch of messages. It dropped 278 of them, but it kept the last 23. Now I said 10, but that's the last 10 assistant messages, the messages that Claude have given that idea. Now, if I open up that same session again, I'll have a much smaller context, but it still has some of the messages from our previous chat. But you can see I didn't scroll for very long. It's just a last look view. Whereas if I go before, like I could scroll forever, and maybe Claude and I were talking about something else. It's not relevant anymore. So that's a great way to just keep the session going without having to use the summarization feature that comes built into Claude Code. The third thing that I want to show is a tool called Conductor. Conductor is a UI that lets you do Git work trees without having to understand what the hell Git work trees is. You just open it up, you set it up in your repo, you get a UI for Claude Code. It takes a second to set up. So I have my chat with Claude Code. I have the to-dos that Claude puts out, my terminal, and then I can set up another workspace, and it will just automatically create a Git work tree for me, make the branch name, and then I can just have multiple projects going inside the same repo.
Sweet. Thanks, Danny. I think people loved the things that you shared, so I appreciate that. Let's allow a couple more people to talk. So Nate, welcome. What's your question?
Hi, I was wondering about what sort of tier for Claude Code you guys use, and also whether you guys are using API pricing. I've used both, and I feel like API pricing is not at all worth it. I'm paying for the $100 a month right now, and I'm wondering if the 200 is worth it, or should I stick where I am?
We use Max. We're all Macs all the time.
Yeah, I'm,
Depends on your usage. So we're just in it all day. So I think it's worth it for us.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Jenny, uh, what's your question? And also please introduce yourself so we know a little bit about you. Jenny, you're on mute if you're trying to talk. All right, we're gonna move on. Uh, Karen, welcome. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hey Dan, thank you. I'm a writer, not a coder, so a lot of this is a bit over my head. But what I observed is that in the plan stage, each of you really had very different approaches to planning. And I think that's maybe a strength and a little bit of a challenge in using these tools, that they're so customizable. But each one of you have kind of figured out your way of planning and what works for you. And so I'm struggling with that. I'm trying to figure out like what goes into my plan in kicking off a project. So it's less of a question, more of an observation. Curious if other folks notice that.
I I think I totally have noticed that, and I think that this is, and not sure if everyone agrees, but maybe one of the reasons why we all have different approaches is we all have different kind of existing expertise, and our approaches kind of match that. Like Dan talked about Kieran being epic at Ruby, and I feel like a lot of his plans have come from that experience and doing what he is. And for me, I spent a lot more time on the data side, and working on like the back end and applied language models, and so that's kind of where my approaches come from. And I think that that's one of the strengths of AI is it kind of, I think of it a lot more as leverage than a product. And it's leverage for your subject matter expertise. And so I don't know if there's necessarily a right one. I think it is kind of what works for you. And not trying to force yourself into other patterns if you already have some patterns that work. I don't know if that directly answers your question, but that's where my head went.
To
Karen.
add to that, we are sharing these plans and commands and things, but make your own. That is more important because I don't know, gave me some beautiful thing. The most important thing is to create your own. Like take inspiration from what we do, know what you can do. I think that's what you should take from everything we share. See how it works and change it, make it your own. Like I think that's really the beauty of this. So there's no right way. Make it your own, but be inspired by what others do.
Totally. Yeah, I think a way to think about the plan steps is for each of us, we've basically built that over time through trial and error, where we've tried to make a plan, we've realized, okay, it's missing this or it's not working in this way, and we sort of start with something really simple and then we build that up. And so I would take the plans that we share as inspirations for things to try, but try one thing at a time so you understand like this is why it's in here and this is what it does. And I think that's a good way to sort of build your skill, and there's no one right answer, but I really appreciate the question.
And don't overcomplicate it. Like, don't try to do exactly what we do. Just do one piece first and try that. Like, that's how we started. I did not start with all these. I started with one command that was way smaller and built from there. So you should build like that.
Great. All right, next question. Evan, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Hey, I'm Evan, former software engineer, I guess. I had a question about reward hacking. So, my experience with agents is a lot of time they will take shortcuts like commenting out tasks, giving up on dependencies they can't resolve. So, if you're letting these things run for a while, how do you guys manage keeping it on task and preventing it from hacking things by just, commenting things out or assert true kind of things?
I say Anthropic, fix your model. And they released Opus 4 and it was already better than 3.7. So I think I don't want to I don't want to juggle prompts like you go to jail if you do this or like those things. I just I just say that's not my problem, that's Anthropic's problem, and I communicate that to them. I think that's not a really good answer, but I feel they will fix it. So the more important thing for us is to figure out how we unlock the power of models more than like those issues. Like I think that's not my problem necessarily. Yeah, it's like we need to deal with it, and like you can say, "Yo, why did you do that?" And once in a while you have a moment like that. But I think Opus 4, I don't have it as much as 3.7. 3.7, I got angry many times, but 4 is it's way better. But yeah, it still does it once in a while.
I mean, I think maybe one thing unsaid in your response, Kieran, is like you're essentially having them create pull requests for you that you're reviewing, right? So like if it comments
Yeah,
out,
I can just say this should not be done, and I have it review itself. And normally it can catch that mistake. Like this is a multi-step process. It's like if Claude Code does this and I have Claude Code review it, it will tell that it's done to return it and that the test doesn't make sense. And then it can fix itself. So there is this like it's good at fixing itself if you set it up to fix itself.
and I mean, for me, the one other thing is that's a big reason why I use the experiment log prompt that I shared at the start is I find that it makes a lot fewer of those errors if it will give clues that it's going to make those mistakes in the plan. If you see the plan and then you're like, yeah, it's going to go do this, 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 and this is exactly how I want to have it set up, and then you let it run, you're much less likely to end up getting those errors, which is a big reason why I do that because I want to make sure that we're on the same page about the plan itself. And I know Kieran was sharing earlier last week that he sometimes has it make like three different plans and then can take the best parts of each one of those plans to have it be something that may not have been the initial approach. So those kinds of things I think helps. And yeah, to Kieran's point, is like reviewing it as it goes through. And until it gets on a roll, I'll verify and won't let it just make changes to every file until I have some more trust there.
One
Great.
other way or strategy is to do TDD, where you say write the test first and then see it fail and then implement it. Normally, if you start with the test, it's a little bit better. The tests are better because it thinks from the different angle instead of like, oh, I have code, let me figure out every million ways to test this. And if that's in your plan, it will follow it pretty well. So if you have a TDD workflow, which is interesting for like more service-based things or like less UI heavy things, more business logic, that is also better in follow.
Great. We're gonna keep going. I want to pause for 1 second I noticed a question from Penny, who you also have your hand raised. So I assume this is the same question, but if it's not, you can put something in the chat. Um, Curious about the goal of today's webinar. Maybe I'm incorrect in thinking that a camp is more of a learner's activity than a training for the already learned. I think that's a really good question. I think Penny is really what you're asking is like this seems like for experts, like like coding experts. And I think as I said at the top, we're figuring this out as we go. We wanted to share everything that we know with you in an hour, which is a pretty tall task looking back. And I think if you put a bunch of nerds like us on a call, we're all just going to like end up just going really, really deep. So over the next couple weeks and months, we are going to have a lot more things like this and a lot more content on every that goes deep for beginners and takes you from zero to being an expert, both for coders and for non-coders. So if you came to this expecting something that was for non-developers, I totally get that you would want that. And I really want to cover that because I spent a lot of time doing non-developer type stuff with Cloud Code. So we're going to have a lot more of that. We're running out of time. We are going to stay on and continue answering questions. So anyone who wants to stick around, please do, and we'll chat with you guys. But for everyone who's has to go at the hour, I just want to remind you, you're an every subscriber. So as an every subscriber, you get access to things like this, which we do regularly. You have access to all of the writing that we do. So every single person that shared on this call, every single person that's building stuff has written for every and is continuing to write for every. So as we learn, as we build, we're going to share all of that in the newsletter. So keep reading the newsletter and you get access to all the products that all the people here are building for free as part of your subscription. So that's Cora, that's Monologue, that's Spiral, that's Sparkle, and we have more to come, all for free under your subscription. And we also do this for organizations. So if you want us to come in and help train your org on how to go AI first, how to use Claude Code, that's something that we do, every.to/consulting. We are going to send out an email with links to everything that we talked about, with a GitHub repo with all of the Claude files that we're using, and a recording to this, so you'll be able to go deeper on it. If you have more questions or you want to keep interacting with us, please hang out in our Discord. We are in there all day. That's where we spend all of our time. So please interact with us there. And thank you so much for coming. Honestly, like, the response to this has been incredible, and it's super fun to get to hang out with all of you. And we're going to do this a lot more often. So with that, feel free to stick around if you want. We're going to keep going. Let's see. We've got a question from Drew. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Drew Collins with Alumni Ventures, and we were all really wondering of just in the venture space, what part of an investment workflow could feel right for this type of automation using Cloud Code, and like you just said, kind of the best process to onboard all of our people onto something like this.
That's a really good question. I would turn that back on to you, which is like, um, where are you spending a lot of time doing like a lot of research with large amounts of text? So, for example, a thing that I could imagine you doing is, if you're doing lots of meetings with companies, is recording all of those meetings and then compiling them into a single place, and then having Claude Code run a bunch of analysis on those meetings. So everything from having a bunch of sub-agents go and examine them, to like find patterns in founders that ended up, or businesses that ended up being good businesses. There's tons and tons of things that you can do, but like, if you have all of those transcripts somewhere, you can do interesting things with them. Another good one is just research on spaces or companies. So if you're uh, evaluating a company in a new space that you don't know anything about, I think Claude Code is fantastic for getting a bunch of primary sources like books, or just having it search the web. But if you have like a ton of books, you can have it download the books and then read through them, and then compile a bunch of resources for you to get up to speed. So there's like, it's sort of endless. Hopefully that helps point you in the right direction.
No, that's great. Thanks, Dan.
All right, let's keep going. Raymond, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I checked my audio, so hopefully everybody can hear. Yeah, my name's Raymond Whitekamp, and I run a 3D printing company called Polyspectra, but I'm just so obsessed with AI that I just can't stop with the vibe coding. So my question, one of the patterns that I noticed, I'm fairly familiar with Claude Code. I haven't let myself fully shift off of Cursor yet, like y'all, but one of the patterns that I noticed that I thought was really cool was seeing like most of, I'm just going to call them like memory artifacts, but like the things that your team wants Claude Code to remember in the future were sort of, hey, put this file in experiments, right? And then they can refer to that later, et cetera. And I didn't notice a single example of someone just doing the like hashtag remember this, which is like how Claude Code tells you to do it. And I guess I was just kind of curious if I don't know if different people were using like the default um, memory thing. And I think, yeah, part of my biggest struggle with Claude Code, I think, has been just like this like getting it to remember the stuff from one session to the next. And oh, I opened it in this folder and I told this thing once, but then I forgot to, it forgot it. Or do I really want this memory in my personal profile because it's kind of niche to this thing? So yeah, any comments on like your what you found as like best practices as like real users rather than what the Anthropic docs might suggest?
Kieran, you want it?
Okay. I like commands. So like, yes, Claude MD is great for some things, but I never use the dash thing. I just tell Claude to first think ultra hard about what it should even store, and then like I review to say, okay, now you can edit. But I do like commands because I control when I trigger those. So like, if you're working on something specific, like a specific workflow. I like to create commands for those, and then you can add memory. Like memory is a silly term. It's just a file with text. So there's
Yeah.
nothing magic to it. It's very easy. You can even download everything you ever wrote into a folder. That's your memory. So, like, I think that's the beauty of Claude is like Claude Code is very simple, but also that makes it very flexible. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I need to figure out what that even means. But like, yeah, memory is just it's just files. And you can say what to do with the files. So that's my best practice. I like commands most now for workflows.
Yeah, and I guess adding to that, I think the biggest thing for me is like control. And I don't have a ton of control over their memory command. I have a lot of control over text files, markdown files that get updated, that are organized for me, that I get, that I know where all that information is and can update over time. And I like keeping track of the past experiments because I can be like, hey, remember when you did this, now do this, but only to your point, right? Like not have it be something that is dragged around as useless context when I'm asking about something else. And you mentioned using it in cursor. I use it in Windsurf all the time because I like that it visualizes the changes in Windsurf. Like I use my Cloud code in Windsurf, and when it will make a diff, it will show in the visual interface, the lines that it's changed and things like that. And I find that personally easier. I'll either look at changes there, or if I'm in a Git tracked folder, using like GitHub Desktop and just seeing like the differences of what it's made. So.
Okay. Can I ask one clarifying thing, which is like one of the things Claude is very eager to do by default, and especially with I find this both within Claude Code and Cursor, but like it'll literally like write the README for something that it's done before it even works. And so it's kind of related to my memory question, which is like if you're sort of prompting it like, hey, document your experiments or document your stuff, the problem I found in the past is like, okay, it wrote a README, but the thing didn't actually pass. And so then now it's like polluted. It's almost like I'm doubling down on its dumbness. Like it's now referring to the bad README before the code worked. And obviously you can prompt things like, okay, you always test your stuff and then you always commit it and then you update the README. But I'm curious if you have experienced similar things in terms of like I don't know what we're gonna call it, like bad context or like out of date context.
No, actually, no. I think if you plan, delegate, and assess in those three steps, that never happens. Like I've seen it in the past in Cursor, but I have not had that for months.
Yeah, and I that's why I use my experiment log and give it somewhere to write some things and that's not the README elsewhere. And then usually once I finish that experiment and it works, then I'll update my README, then I'll update my LLMs.txt, and then I'll push.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's keep going. So, Rajiv, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm mostly focused on nonprofit projects and building out software focused on community journalism and participatory journalism. I've been trying to build out more of a rigorous TDD practice, and I'm really excited about being able to, leverage LLMs to actually be able to have more of my code base test coverage. But one of I'm really curious about is using TDD. uh, the keyword there is driven, like test-driven development. And usually for me, what that should mean is before you actually write any working code, you're writing a test that fails, right? The test should fail, and then you know that the code that the LLM has written is successful only if that test is passing. And I'm just curious if you guys have any tips or any structures that have worked well for you, or if you're just basically giving it the instructions for whatever feature you're trying to develop and then saying, something like before you're writing your working code, first write a test that fails until the feature is successfully implemented and fully functioning, and test it afterwards.
Anyone have thoughts, Kieran?
Yes. I love TDD since I'm a Ruby on Rails user. So yes, make sure it's in your plan. Just make sure that the plan contains the test, you like at least the cases and the assertions, and then when make sure your work command is including like really, really first. run the test, see it fail. Like be explicit at that it should fail and never implement anything until I give a go ahead. Like that's something you could do. Um, the only thing is now TDD is a little bit less of a thing I do because like it just implements it and it adds the test. So like I don't really care if it first writes the test or after. Like if it works, it works, and if the tests are there, the tests are there. So for me, TDD, like it's a way if you're more like in the loop developing where you are looking at the steps and monitoring. But I think it's less like I don't think the quality goes up necessarily in my testing. So I'm doing it less now because like it's running with the plan and test.
That's really interesting to hear that there's no like quality difference in your experience because I think from like a human coder, of course, you think about it as, oh, if I've thought about what success looks like, then I'm going to be able to better write code that's actually driven towards that successful outcome. But if you're
Yeah.
saying in your experience, the LLMs, it doesn't actually make a difference whether or not they write
Oh,
the code firsthand.
for the code quality, I've never seen a real big difference, but for the tests, I've seen. Like, if you do TDD, normally the tests are a little bit better than the other way around. Like, it tends to write a lot of weird use cases and mock things and stuff, and like do things I like. This is not a good test, or this is way too much. So I think from like, if you want to improve the quality of your tests without like having to comment on it, it might increase it, but like yeah, I've not done it as much as I did in Cursor, for example, a few months.
Great. All right, let's do one or two more and then we're gonna head out. So let's see. Paul, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Heather, I think you just connected me. I lost the audio for a second. This is Paul Bonneville. I am in Lafayette, Colorado. I am an evolving software engineer. Um, the question really is, and this is kind of based on Claude Code and all these new work formats and metaphors. Like for a software engineer who is working I currently have time on my hands, but like when a software engineer who's working at a company doing their specific job in the traditional way, do you guys have a perspective on how to help them migrate? Because I've got time on my hands. I'm spending a lot of time in Claude Code, evolving my practice, but like engineers are resistant, I don't think only because it's AI, but like what's your take on like how do they do that? Like how do you do your day job, do your code, and then learn this whole new flow?
You hire every AI consulting team. No, you read every. No, I mean it's definitely tough. I think jumping right into Claude Code is probably I mean, again, it depends where you are, right? If your day-to-day is working in an editor, Cursor and Windsurf are going to look really familiar, and you can do everything that you're doing in a current editor there, and then you can start trying it a little bit. I think really the best thing is you try it. Like you start learning it and you build intuition, and it's just like any other tool. Is like as you use it more, you get better at it. And so you use it for things that you're comfortable with it doing, which might be, hey, I just wrote this feature, now I want to write a test, and you can do that or I have this undocumented file, add documentation, right? Like those things are, there's a lot of ways to fail successfully there. And I love having AI work on things that there's a lot of ways to fail successfully at. And so you just start trying it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like a big thing that we do with AI consulting with our training and consulting business is we go in and interview people and figure out what they're doing on a day to day. So that when we do trainings, it's directly relevant to exactly what you're doing and it is helpful that you can like and you can learn from that and I think that that's where we see the most adoption is when it is directly related to the things that you're doing on your day to day and it is actually saving you time rather than this being this like abstract idea.
No, that's great because there's anchoring on. So like, even I'm finding like I'm not experiencing that problem because I do have the time to work on this evolution. I've just put tons of time into it. But the organization I'm coming out of, the camps were split. There's resistance to it. There were years being like, if you were told you had to use AI, like, what would you do? And so I'm thinking about this because I'm also trying to talk to other engineers to get them to do it. I just sound like a crazy person half the time, like, this is a lot to learn at the same time. And it makes me think of Going back to like when I learned Ruby on Rails from just doing mobile stuff, like that was a big learning curve. I had to put a lot of personal time. So this great, perfect. That's good context. So thank you.
All right, I think we're gonna leave it there. I cannot say enough how excited I am and just grateful that all of you showed up and grateful that we got to share with you. Please keep showing up, keep reading try all the products, ask questions, go in the Discord, and we're going to do another one of these very soon, and we will reach out very soon with all the details from today, including recordings and all the links to all the files and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.